Practice. Welcome everybody. Namaste. So our practice time begins as we ground ourselves into our Tadasana posture, taking those feet nice and neatly together. Taking a moment to arrive on the mat as you spread the weight nice and evenly through the feet, forwards, backwards, side to side, even noticing where you spread the weight on the inside or the outside of each foot. Getting a good firm foundation. Maybe lift and spread the toes if you like and let them come to rest gently on the mat. And we're enlivening the legs slightly, engaging those kneecaps and thighs. Feeling a sense of rooting down from the waist into the earth as we engage our bandhas. That subtle lift in the pelvic floor, the low tummy engaged, a sense of lengthening through the waist as the shoulders a little roll, and let the arms hang loosely by your sides. The chin's nicely tucked in, so there's a lengthening through the back of the neck, a crown of the head is extending towards the sky. And then focusing on your breath. These deep, smooth, entire breaths are the focus of our practice all the way through. Your main priority, staying present and aware, noticing that breath moving in the body. Everything else is a bonus. So when you're ready, we'll take those hands together and interlace the fingers as we warm up initially with our knuckles glued into that chin. And we're inhaling and exhaling. Deeply in and then out through the mouth, releasing the head back. In through the nose, out through the nose. In through the nose, out through the mouth as we soften the head back. Keep rooted and strong down into the legs. Light and lengthen through the torso. Engaged with those bandhas. Finding your rhythm. A little faster or a little slower, depending on how you want to breathe and move today. Listen to that body. Feeling that warmth and energy building. Feeling that space being created. More movement and opening coming in the shoulders. More release in the neck. Just 2 more rounds. And a final one. And in your own time, when you finish your cycle, releasing. So feeling that first little surge of warmth through the body. Going with that feeling for a moment. And then we're going to come into warming up our spine, Ardha Chandrasana. Hands to prayer. Inhale, sweeping arms wide and high, planting palms together, gaze point forward. Just gently and slowly exploring on this first set, noticing how the body's feeling today as we come over to the right, that stretch all the way down the left-hand side of the body, gently pressing away into that left hip. There's a subtle lift in the thighs, the toes are soft, the palms are neatly together, the shoulders relaxed, back and down away from the ears. 3 deep breaths, exploring a little further, checking in with your alignment as you press away into that hip. 1 more breath, feel the space on the inhale, exploring into it as you exhale, and breathing your way back to center. Root to the floor and lift through the waist, come up and over to the left, feeding that stretch down the right hand side, checking where the weight is placed in the feet, the toes are soft, the heels are rooted all the way down into the right heel, checking that alignment. 3 deep breaths, tummy strong as you press into that right hip. Lifted thighs, engage those bandhas. 1 more breath, tummy strong, exploring deeper, and inhaling to center. And coming into our back bend, soft knees, relaxing the head back, pushing the hips forward as we open through the front of the body. Feel free, especially on this first set, if you need to support the back with the hands on the hips. 3 deep breaths as we extend the hips towards the front. Lift the chest. Lengthen through the waist. 1 more breath, rooted into the feet as you reach through the fingertips. And then inhaling back to center. Lift and lengthen and fold forward. Keep a sense of space and length through the front of the body and allow the knees to bend as much as you need to extend bladder, stomach, ribs and chest down to those thighs. Let the head go. If you're confident and happy hanging upside down there, we can take the hands to the ankles. If you need them as support, either on the thighs or the floor, then feel free to use them. Softening into the hips for 3. Check the toes are soft as we press into the feet. Let go of the head and lift the pelvic floor. 1 more breath. Standing and lengthening gently through the spine. palms together, core strong. Push and lift and release. And coming back into a second set. Inhale deeply, sweeping those arms wide. Gaze point forward, soften the shoulders away from the ears. They're stabilized into their sockets. Lengthening on the inhale and extending on the exhale. Take the first couple of breaths to just explore your alignment. Check the top shoulders not dropping forward or too far back, but they're beautifully in line. Then 3 deep breaths as we lift the thighs and lengthen through the waist. Feel the chest lift and open on the inhale. Explore deeper into that space as you exhale. One more. Fingers soft, palms together, maybe gliding the arms a little straighter and breathing your way back to center. Root to the floor and lengthen, and then up and over on the exhale to the other side. We never want to feel like we're buckling into that left-hand side of the body, but lifting up and out of the waist, stretching open through the spine as we press the hip to the right for 3 breaths. Rooted into the ground, lengthened into the fingertips. 2, power in the tummy, lifted pelvic floor. 1 more breath, feel the space, and inhaling back to center. And finding that center as we come into our second back bend. Back bends are about front opening, so we're thinking about creating more space all the way through the front of the body. The hips come forward, the tailbone tucks under, more space through the front of the hip. The chest and tummy are lifting, the shoulders roll back and down. 3, relax back a little further. Trust that foundation so you can release and soften into it. 1 more breath, relax that neck. And inhaling back to center. Lifting up through and folding forward. Using hands on the thighs if you need, forearms if you wish. But once you can get the ribs pressing down onto the thighs, then the back is completely supported. You can just let that body hang out, softening into the hips, giving the weight of the torso down to gravity, especially that head, let it go. We can use the arms to help pull us down if you like, but we're not rounding and pulling in towards the thighs. We're extending and lengthening once the body's glued to those thighs. 2 more breaths, nice soft toes as you press into the floor. 1 more, use the banders to ripple that spine longer. And releasing, palms together. Push to the ground, lift, and release. Lovely stuff. Deep breath in, our final set. Inhale, sweeping arms high, planting palms together, gaze point forward. Lengthen as you inhale, up and over to the right as you exhale, pressing into that left hip. Check in with your hands. If you like to have them clasped, then make sure those fingers are nice and soft. If there's any tension in thumbs and fingers, it's transferring tension into your shoulders. 3 huge breaths. Feel that space as you inhale. Explore deeper into it as you exhale. Gaze points straight ahead. Back of the neck is long. 1 last breath. Lifted thighs, keeping hips beautifully square. And inhaling to center. Take a breath. Feel that space and length, and then come up and over to the left. Checking in with fingers. Heels of the palms gently together, arms as straight as you comfortably can, shoulders travelling back and down, long neck. 3 deep breaths, extending away into that right hip. 2, draw the tummy button in and up. 1 more breath, strong legs, lifted pelvic floor, and releasing back to center. Coming into our final back bend, taking your time to set it up the way that works best for you. Relaxing the head back, pushing the hips forward, tracing a line across the ceiling and eventually down the back wall. Breathe, don't go so far that you can't breathe ever in any posture. Feel the space on the inhale, softening back on the exhale. 2 more if you can. Release the neck back a little bit further if it's comfortable. 1 more. Feel the chest lift as you inhale. Reach the fingertips back and inhaling back up to center. Beautiful. Lengthening into that center and hinging forward. Trying to fold at the hips, keeping that lengthening spine, extending further and further. Bringing those ribs eventually further and further down the thighs. Let the head go, extending it eventually past the knees and down the shins. Hands, if you're clasping ankles, can be nice and strong. The elbows tucking in gently behind those knees. Relax the shoulders, give the weight of the body and the head down to gravity. 3 deep breaths, pushing gently into the soles of the feet, gliding the legs a millimetre straighter. Find that edge, that sweet spot. Never any pain, just somewhere you can soften and lengthen into. For 1 more breath. And releasing, palms together, core strong. Bend the knees as much as you need. Lift and release. Very nice indeed. So have a little sip on the water as and when you need them. Always feel free to have a sit down if you need to, as we go from one posture to the other without breaks. So next, switch distance for Utkatasana. No, it's not. It's a different kind of chair posture. It's our awkwards, those hip switch distance with the feet. Beautiful parallel feet, toes are lifted, arms at shoulder. Roll the shoulders back and down, lift up through the core, and exhale, squat down into that chair. Hold your ground as you inhale, bending a little deeper on the exhale. Lift the pelvic floor, and sit down into the tailbone for 3, as we lift the toes a little higher. 2, zip up through the core, shoulders back and down. For 1, just watch those knees are not pulling together, and releasing back to center. Beautiful. Down into the ground. As we lift those heels, lift the bandhas, lift the crown of the head to the heavens. Leaning forward when you're ready, bending the knees, and lift those heels again as high as you can. Work with your body today, never forcing, never straining. For 3, engage the core, maybe tuck under into the tailbone. 2, lift the heels a little higher. For 1, and releasing. Beautiful stuff. Then we're coming together, or closer together with those feet, taking hands and knees to the floor, and sitting back. The buttocks reaching eventually to those heels, but never forcing, never straining. If you've leant so far back your knees become light and you're toppling backwards in recent practice, then come straight into that pure balancing. Use your drishti, your gaze point straight on the floor, keeping the back of the body lengthened, keeping the power in the balance. Just 2, lift that pelvic floor. For 1, and slowly and gently coming forward, hands to the ground as we press the knees off. Lengthening on the inhales and folding forward on the exhales. Pressing the heels towards the ground, let the head drop in between those knees. And breathe deeply into the back of the body. Let go into the jaw and the neck. As you feel the chin soften towards the collarbone. 3 deep breaths. Use the fingers, a light touch to the floor if you need them. 2, eventually taking them off once you've got that balance. 1, and releasing, coming up nice and slow. Anyone who needs to, especially knee or back niggles, or into that leap if you prefer. And then our second set. Hip switch distance about again, once again. That foot length in between the heels, if that helps you. Or look at the mirrors, see your outside of your feet to your outside of your feet, to the outside of your hips, shoulders back and down. Lift the toes, lift the banders and squat down into that chair behind you. Watching that everything's coming beautifully parallel as you do. Notice your knees might want to twist together, they might want to splay apart. Your job is to keep them beautifully parallel. 3 breaths, roll the shoulders down the back. 2, zip up through the core. 1 more, lift the toes as you bend into the knees. And releasing. And coming high onto toes and forefeet. Keep breathing. Keep your breath as your focus. If you're straining with the breath, back off with the physical postures. The breath is always the most important key. 3 deep breaths. Lift those heels a little higher. 2, feel the calves working. Sit down deeper. 1 more breath. Power in the belly, maybe sitting a little more upright. And releasing. And feet closer together. Hands and knees to the ground. Coming straight down into pure balancing if you wish. Or just finding your edge. Sometimes it'll be too much to sit all the way back if there's stuff going on in the foot, the toes, or the ankles. Just find your place today. That's absolutely where we're meant to be. In, deep out. As we lean back, it's coming from a tucking under in the tailbone, so the spine stays straight out of that power base. Just 2, soften and release. 1, and slowly coming forward. Hands press up and over. As we press the heels to the ground, we get a lovely stretch through the back of the calf. Back of the ankle, maybe even feeling it in the back of the knee. And as you really consciously let go of that head a little bit more, giving its weight towards the floor, allowing gravity to take it. If you need a gap, if it starts bumping on your knees, then separate the knees slightly. Really deep into the back of the body. Just 2 more. Finding that softness and space through the back of the body. Feel the hips pulling back, the head pulling forward, the spine being lengthened. And releasing, coming up nice and slowly for anybody who needs to, knees or backs particularly, or firing into that leap if you wish. Very nice. So next we're coming into Garudasana, the eagle posture. 2 sets here. Always take a break if you need one. Listen to your body, listen to your breath. Finding our Tadasana, bringing hands to prayer, Samastiti. Inhale, sweeping arms wide. Exhale, left elbow swings underneath the right. Find your bind in front of the face. Soften the shoulders, lift the core. Breathe that left knee high. Feel the space and length through the spine, leaning forward and bend deep as you can into that right knee. And inhale, the left knee up and over, closing the gap between the thighs. You might have one knee on top of the other. If the knee's gone way past the other, you might be exploring the full wrap. 3 deep breaths. Square the hips, pulling them to the left. 2. Zip up through the core, lengthening the spine. 1 more breath. Soften the shoulders and pull down gently through those elbows. And release. Wide and down. Coming back to center. Back to your breath. Inhale wide. Exhale right elbow underneath the left. Make sure your bind's in front of the face. That's your beak of the eagle. If you take it off to one side, you'll find you're twisted in the shoulders and therefore twisted in the spine, and it's much harder to balance. Lift that right knee high, leaning forward and bend down deep. Engage the pelvic floor, feel the tummy working as we take the right leg up and over. Closing the gap between the thighs. If you're in that full wrap, extending the toes down the ankle. 3 deep breaths. Square the hips, pulling them gently to the right. 2, zip up through the core, relax the shoulders. 1 more as we bend down, sitting deep into that chair. And releasing arms and down. Beautiful stuff. Second set. Inhaling deep. Exhale, left elbow under the right. Feel the space through the back of the shoulders. Try not to round forward, but feel the space in the chest also. As we lift that left knee high, leaning forward and sit down into that chair. The thing that's going to loosen up those hips the quickest is how deep you can bend that right knee. So allow the body to lean forward as much as you need to make that happen. 3 deep breaths. Sitting down deeper. 2, core strong. If you're making a 90, sit more upright to make it harder. 2, 1 more. And releasing. Arms wide and down. Final set, final side. Inhale wide, exhale, left, right elbow underneath the left. Find in front of the face, shoulders as square as you can, zip up through the core as you lift the right knee high. Use a gaze point to help with your balance. Find one fixed point, it might be your wrist, your elbow, your eyes. It's going to move with you as you bend deeper. Take that right leg up and over when you're ready. And breathe. Consolidate there before you go any further. Lift the pelvic floor, feel the tummy strong. For 3, as we bend the left knee a fraction deeper. 2, sit down into the tailbone. 1 more, sitting more upright if you're at a 90. And releasing, arms wide and down. Beautiful stuff. Coming into our big 3 single leg standing postures next, starting with the standing head to knee. Just listening to that breath, finding that focus. Find your Tadasana in between each posture. Just tune in to where there's any held tension. Let it go as much as you can. So first we're breathing the right knee off the ground, interlacing the fingers. And taking that bind nice and high up on the top of the right knee. And we're breathing the knee in towards the body and up at the same time. The shoulders are back and down. We're doing that by bending the arms. So bend at the arms, we're not leaning back. The crown of the head's extending towards the sky. If you can feel the ribs pressing into the thigh and you're comfortable, feel free to walk down. Otherwise, we're just staying there, finding more softness in that hip. More length in the spine. Inhale, straighten. Exhale, kicking forward if that's you today. No pressure to do so. Lift the standing quad for everybody for 3 deep breaths. Gaze point lowers if you've kicked forward, so your neck and lower back are not jarring against each other. The nose comes down towards the knee. Keep that heel higher than the hip or level as a minimum. Fantastic. 1 more breath. A little more bend in those arms will bring the power back into the biceps. And releasing, bending, straightening, and letting go. Fantastic. Shifting to the other side. Always, wherever we move, our neck and our lumbar spine naturally want to move together. So when we do back bends, we look up. When we do forward bends, we look down. Work with your body, not against it. Breathing that left knee high. Interlacing the fingers, find a root down into that right foot. Feel the space and length and lift through that torso. Shoulders soften away from the ears, power in the belly and the biceps. Walking down if you wish. Otherwise, staying, finding more softness in that hip. Make sure you're breathing. Inhale, straighten up. Exhale, kick out through the heel. The gaze point's much easier to shift Before you kick forward, so make sure you're looking at the floor or you're jarring into that neck. Just one more breath. Lift the standing quad, tailbone towards the windows, crown towards the toes, and releasing. Beautiful stuff. Ending, straightening and letting go. So try not to collapse out of it, because that again takes the strain on the low back. Come back up and then release the leg. Everything with control and with breath. So when you're ready, second set. Always take a rest if you need one. Otherwise, interlacing those fingers, breathing the knee high. We can loosen up that hip further and further till we get the whole thigh crushing onto that chest. And walking the hands down if you wish. Gaze point. If you're hooked up with that foot, is about 1 meter in front of the right toe. Zip up through the core and straighten. Exhale, kick the heel out in front of you. Straight ahead is perfect, but we never want that heel to drop below the hip, otherwise we'll take the strain on the low back. Beautiful. 3 breaths, lift the standing quad. 2, a little bend in those arms. 1 more breath, tuck them in towards the knee, and releasing. Bending, straightening, and letting go. Final breath, final side. We're not final breath. No final breaths. Not here. Thanks very much. Root into that right foot. Lengthen through the spine. Shoulders back and down. Release the ankle. Lengthen the spine. If you're feeling that knee nice and high, walk the hands down. We can squeeze it in and up even further on the walk down. So there's eventually minimal lean forward to grab that heel. That forefoot even. Lengthening forward. On an exhalation, keep the power in the belly. Shoulders are traveling back and down away from the ears. Elbows are tucking in towards the knee. Feel the power in the belly and the biceps. Just 2 more breaths. Lift that right quad. 1 more. Tailbone to the windows, crown to the mirrors. And releasing, bending, straightening, and letting go. Very nice. Couple of good breaths there. Then we're countering that posture with our standing bow pulling. That was a forward fold, now we have a back bend. So again, remembering we keep the gaze point nice and high this time. The neck and the lumbar spine helping each other to open. Feel that sense of space being created through the front of the body. So we're whipping the right foot back. You can grab the outside of the foot, or if you're going for the inside, make sure your elbow's tucked into the waist, the thumb behind you like you're hitchhiking. If that's ever too much on the shoulder or the elbow, just grab the outside. Inhale, feel the space. Exhale, push the knee out behind you. Keep the gaze point high. Feel that space extending and opening through the front of the body. Just ticking over, focusing on that breath. Hear that breath, really deep and smooth. And 3 deep breaths as you power up and back into that right knee. 2, feel the space, hold your ground. Exhale, power further, exploring into it. 1 more breath, keep that standing quad lifted and straight. Lovely. And releasing back to center. Beautiful. Never worry about not wobbling over. It's a good sign that you're working right on your edge. Every so often we topple over. Getting straight back on for the other side as we take that left foot back. Elbow into the waist, thumb behind you, or grab the outside of the foot. Both work perfectly. Arm high, knees come to touch so your hips are in line. Chest lifts forward as you inhale. Push the knee back on the exhale. So the foot's being pushed back into the steely grip of the fingers. There goes the hip. Lift the standing quad and tick over and breathe. 3, and power up into that leg. 2, standing quad lifted, lift the chest for 1, and releasing back to center. Beautiful stuff. In, deep out. Find that Tadasana once again. Notice anywhere that you've got held tension, release it if you can. Then second set. Whipping back that right foot once again. You can grab around the toes, the top of the foot, the ankle or the low shin eventually. Bring the knees to touch. Feel the body extending up and forward. As you inhale, the chest comes forward. As you exhale, the knee shifts back. Pressing it back straight behind you. Eventually we're going to lose sight of that knee behind the thigh. And one day those toes will come straight out the top of the head. 3 deep breaths. Lift the standing quad and power up into that right leg. 2, feel the chest lift forward, the arm high, the gaze point high. 1 more breath, hold your ground on the inhale, power up on the exhale, and releasing gently back to center. Beautiful. Up the breath there, and then our final set, final side. That left foot whips back. A good steely grip with those fingers. Knees coming together, arm high, shoulder back and down. Feel that space through the chest. The sternum is eventually coming further, centrally forward, extending straight towards the mirrors, and kick the legs up and back behind you. Hold your ground on the inhalations, exploring a fraction deeper on the exhalations. No one's going flat out yet. Just 1 more breath ticking over. And then 3 deep breaths. Feel that space on the inhale. Kick up into that space on the exhale. Rooted solidly into that right foot. Light and lifted through the torso. 1 more breath. Kick the toes to the ceiling. And releasing. Beautiful stuff. Half a breath there. And final one of these big 3 single leg standing postures, the scales or T posture. We want a straight line from toes to fingertips all the way through this posture. So think about that lengthening, feel that power in the belly. If you feel yourself stooping, then come back up and feel that extension once again. Working with that core strength, and of course that breath. Every muscle in the body is screaming out for oxygen in this posture. Breath is the only way to get it there. Hands to pray. Inhale, sweeping high to the steeple. Look up for a moment if you like, then bring the head back. The biceps glued to the ears. Zip up through the core and step the right foot forward. Stand strong and confidently on that right leg first of all. And gradually, that left leg, that's strong, dynamic, even hyperextended if you like, comes higher, the body comes lower, keeping that beautiful straight line. Hands to hips if you need to, especially if you're working with lowering that left hip in line with the right. Soften the right hip to bring the left hip down if you can. 3, extend out through that left leg. 2, lift this right quad for 1 more breath. And breathing back to center. Fantastic. Drop the head back if you wish. And back to center. Inhaling arms high once again if you need, and then exhaling, your left foot steps forward. Make sure you feel strong and rooted into that left leg. The standing quad is lifted. There's a subtle softness at the back of the knee, but not a bend. The thigh is engaged, keeping that leg strong. Just ticking over and exploring for 1 more breath. And 3 huge breaths, soften that left hip to bring the right hip down in line. 2, extend out through toes or flex at the ankle, pressing the sole of the foot to the back wall. 1 more, and releasing, stepping back up, and relax. So a little break, a little rest, a little longer in between the sets to allow that heart rate to soften a little, to allow us to turn that awareness further inward. Notice where you hold tension in that posture. Be aware of it and see if you can release it next time. Very often in this one we can really squeeze those thumbs like we're gripping on for dear life, but that just creates tension in the shoulders, so try and soften those thumbs if you can. So, second set. Only coming into the full splits if you are nailing that T with nice square hips. Hands to prayer. Inhale, sweeping arms wide and high. Palms together, gaze point forward. Zip up through the core. Exhale, the right foot forward. Gradually coming around the dial until we find that T. From there, extending in two opposite directions before we fold further. Fingertips eventually become palms, and then grabbing the right hand first onto that right ankle if you're going for that full splits. Or keep the hands down if you need the support. Don't take the hands off until you can get that right leg strong and straight. 3 breaths, power those toes towards the ceiling. 2, pull the tummy down towards the thigh. Lovely. 1 more breath, kick the toes high, and releasing back to center. Keep the arms high if you can, or breathe them back up if you need for our final side. Zip up through the core and lengthen. Exhale, left foot steps forward. Strong lifted quad. Feel the lightness and power extending out into that right leg. Keep the hips nice and square. If you're not sure if they are, feel free to take the hands to those hips. Then fingertips become palms if you're coming forward. Here, like any other forward bend, we're extending the body down towards the thighs as we keep the leg higher. Remember, the length of the spine is going to produce more space in those hips to allow the leg to come higher. For 3, if you can. Lift that standing quad for 2. Keep the arms high, the power in the belly for 1. And releasing back up. And relax. Fantastic stuff. Well done. Some beautiful postures. Everybody working at their edge, which is absolutely perfect. So listen to that breath for a moment. Have a sip on the water if you need. And then we're facing the right for the next few postures. Starting with our wide leg forward fold. So feel free to fold the towels in the center if that helps you find a grippy foundation into that mat. Feet are wide and parallel, maybe even slightly pigeon-toed, but no Charlie Chaplins, please. Hands to prayer. Inhale, sweep the arms wide, look high. Exhale, fold forward. Take the hands as soon as you need them, pressing strongly onto the outside of the legs to support the back. The autonomic nervous system needs to know that the back is supported. Otherwise, it will tense and protect into the hips and not allow the hips and hamstrings to loosen and release. If the back and the spine are in potential jeopardy, then your body will take action to make sure that you're not in a vulnerable position, there's not any injury coming. So that pressing in of the hands is absolutely vital to teach the body for it to know that it's supported and it's safe to release and soften into those hamstrings and hips. 3 deep breaths, lift the pelvic floor, shoulders away from the ears. 2, ripple that spine a little bit longer. 1 more, check where the weight is placed in the feet, don't dump it all into the heels, and releasing back to center. Reaching out through the fingertips and release. You can keep those feet wide or you can come back to neutral for a moment. And we're going for a second set. Finding your position, maybe going a little bit wider if your head's not quite on the ground. If it is on the ground, maybe coming in a little narrower so you've longer to lengthen the spine. Inhale, sweeping wide. Exhale, hinging forward. Strong lifted quads if you can. Each inhale, you're lengthening the ribs away from the hips. extending the space between the tailbone and the crown of the head. Each exhale, you're pulling down with the tummy, folding a little bit deeper into those hips. 3, keep the toes soft, don't hyperextend the legs, but lift the quads. 2, let the head go, rippling the spine along. 1 more breath, shoulders back and down, pull forward with the tummy towards that space between the thighs, and release it. Weaving your way back to centre, and come back to Tadasana if you wish. Stay wide if that's your preference. Couple of breaths there before our side angle stretch. Once again, wide with the feet, nice and parallel, wrists width distance we're aiming for eventually, hands to prayer. Inhale, sweeping high to the steeple, exhale, arms to shoulder. Inhale, turn the right foot out, exhale, bend that knee straight towards the toes. The knee over the ankle, good strong weight into the strong lifted left leg. Making sure it's straight. Right hand or elbow resting on the thigh or pressing into the inside of the knee as the left fingers reach to the sky. Try to have no weight into those right fingertips on this first set. If the arm is straight, press the elbow into the knee, bracing yourself into place. Lift the core so you don't need that weight in the fingertips. 1 more breath. And then powering back up to centre, lift and lengthen, arms to shoulder. Inhale, turning the left foot out 90 degrees, bend that left knee. Directly over the ankle if you can. A little further is fine, but never any further than the toes. Keep the right quad lifted, and if you can, try not to use the weight down into those fingertips. So take the bony centre of your elbow and place it into the bony centre of your knee. Push it in. Feel how that opens up further into the groin and braces you in place so you don't need that support. Just 2, lift the right quad and press out into the outside edge of the foot. For 1, and powering back to centre, and release. And keep those legs wide if you're comfortable there. We'll come back to neutral for a moment. As we go for a second set, extending that side angle stretch this time. Inhaling, sweeping arms high to the steeple. Exhaling to shoulder. Inhale, turn the right foot out. Exhale, bend down into the knee. Nothing else need move except that right leg and hip for a moment. Keep the core strong and lengthened, and then windmill down. This time, the top arm comes up and over the top. We can have the hand in front once again if you like, or if you can comfortably reach the floor without collapsing the torso, take the hand to the outside of the right foot. 3 breaths. Twist the top rib cage up and back. 2, sending the sternum towards the mirrors. Reach out through the fingertips. Beautiful. 1 more breath. See if you can bend that knee a tiny bit further. And then powering back up to centre. Zip up through the core. Lift and lengthen. Arms to shoulder. Inhale, turn the left foot out 90. Exhale, bend into the knee. Keep the weight nice and even through that foot as you windmill down. Try not to send the chest towards the floor, but turning it towards the mirrors. Arm up and over the top, looking for a nice straight line down the side of the body. Try not to let the hips drop below the knee, but connect to the outside edge of that right foot if you possibly can. 3, lift the core, strong right leg. 2, up and over with the arm long in the back of the neck. 1 more breath. And powering back to centre, and release. Deep in, deep out. And we're coming a little bit closer together this time. with our feet elbows distance apart for the revolved triangle. Hands to pray. Inhale, sweeping high to the steeple, look high if you like. Then gaze point comes forward, shoulders roll down and back. Feel the shoulder blades if you can, hugging gently into the back of the rib cage. Turn the left foot in and the right foot out, squaring hips to the back wall. Lift the kneecaps and thighs, keeping those legs straight as you look high on the inhale and fold forward on the exhale. The left hand is supporting the spine, so it's pressing strongly into that right leg as it comes down, closer towards the foot eventually. One day to the outside of the foot, but only if you can do that comfortably without dropping the left hip. 3 deep breaths. Extend the crown straight towards the front of your mat. Beautiful. Then down into the left shoulder, up into the right. Looking towards those fingertips eventually. It's just starting to drop now. Can you feel it going? Lift the quads, lift the bandhas, reach out through the fingertips, and then breathing the hands back together and powering back to center. Turning the right foot in and the left foot out, square the hips to the front wall, check you can just see that right heel in the mirrors so that you're balancing on train tracks rather than a tightrope. Inhale, look high, exhale, extending forward. Lengthening out of the pelvis as the pelvis tilts forward, the right hand coming down, the left shin, the left ankle, the left foot. One day, the outside of that foot, but only if you can do it without dropping the hip. Inhale, lengthen the crown of the head towards the mirrors, lengthen the tailbone towards the back wall. 2, down into the right shoulder, up into the left. Twist the sternum towards the brick wall. 1 more breath, reach high. And releasing the hands back together, strong, pushing the ground away. And release. And we're going to keep the feet where they are, take the hands straight behind, grabbing the opposite wrist or elbow, eventually prayer position if you can. And turning that left foot in and the right foot out, twist the hips to the back wall. Inhale, look high. Exhale, fold forward. This time let that right knee bend as much as you need to lengthen bladder, stomach, ribs and chest right down onto the thigh before you let go of the head, softening the nose to the knee. If the ribs are still away from the thigh at the moment, use the forearms or the hands for support. So again, your body knows it's safe to release and soften into that hip because the back is supported. Just 3 breaths. Widen the leg a millimetre straight. 2. Rippling the spine a little more. 1. And push the ground away strongly, powering back to centre. Centre through the feet. Turn the right foot in and the left foot out, squaring the hips to the mirrors. Zip up through the core and look high. Exhale, bend the left knee as much as you need. It might be a fraction, it might be right bent so you can't see the toes. It doesn't matter at all because once you're down and supported, you can glide that leg straighter, finding the right place for you to be working today. Feeling a stretch, but not such an intense stretch that the body needs to tense to resist. And inhale. That's 3, 2, 1 breath, and powering back up to centre, centering the feet and release those hands. Give them a good shake out or roll in the opposite direction if you like. Before we come to face the front once again, Utkatasana, penultimate standing posture. okay. Excuse me, give yourself 1 minute. Oh no, it's just a bit late. Here he comes. Yes. So finding your Tadasana, Utkatasana, fierce posture, 1 set, hands to prayer. Zip up through the core and lengthen. Exhale, bowing forward and then bending down into the knees, sitting deep into that chair. Zip up through the core as we sweep the arms wide and high. Try not to lose the bend in the knees. Make sure your tummy button is drawn strongly in towards the spine, supporting that low back. For 3 breaths, shoulders back and down as you reach high. 2, bend a little deeper into those knees. 1 more, sit down into the chair as you lift through the torso. And releasing. If you feel that strongly in the low back, give a little round forward. And then finally, we're coming into our tree posture. So breathing the right leg first up off the ground. If you're working on balance today, it could be just coming into the calf or the inner thigh eventually. Otherwise, if you want to go for a little more opening in that hip and your balance is good, bring the hands onto the foot and draw it onto the front of the thigh. Allowing the knee to soften with gravity down towards the ground as the hip releases. Lifted core, lengthened spine, use your drishti, use your breath. 3 deep breaths, power in the belly, lengthen the crown of the head to the ceiling. 2, allow the shoulders to soften away from the ears. 1 more breath, lift the pelvic floor, feel the knee releasing towards the ground and releasing back to center before letting go of that foot. Final side, once again, find your version of the tree, making sure you're breathing, holding your ground on the inhales, exploring deeper on the exhales. Use 1 hand on that foot on the front of the thigh for as long as you need it. And breathe. 3 deep breaths, down through the tailbone, up through the crown. 2, shoulders away from the ears, tummy strong. 1 more, give the weight of that leg down to gravity, releasing into the hips as the knee softens low. And inhaling back to center and down, and then we're down on the floor. So lying onto our backs. Coming first of all into the double wind removing posture. Bringing both knees up towards the chest. Make sure your tailbone is staying nice and low to the ground. As much of the back of the body on the floor as you can. You might want to lift it initially to get a little bit of lengthening through that low back, or a gentle rock from side to side. But once you're in the posture, squeezing the knees straight down towards the floor, straight down towards the chest. 3 deep breaths. Pulling a little bit further on the exhale as you soften into the front leg. 2, chin is tucked in, back of the neck long. 1 more breath, press the tailbone down into the ground, use those banders, and release it. And coming up into a sit-up and forward fold. Raise the legs if you need more momentum to fire forward. Or feel free to roll to one side if your back's giving you trouble today. Deep wave of inhale, power in the belly, hold the breath, fire the hands forward, and exhale gently once you're upright. Rocking the buttocks from side to side if you like. If you feel your tailbone still a little tucked under, use the hands behind you until you can come nicely up into that staff posture. Once that's comfortable, walking the hands forward. Eventually coming to the ankles, and if you are, we can start to pull back on the forefoot. Don't feel like you have to go further on every exhalation. Sometimes we go right to our edge, we just need a breath or two to soften into it. Find that release through the back of the legs, the back of the knees, keep the shoulders nice and soft. 3 breaths. Inhale, lengthen the front of the torso. Exhale, pull the tummy down, forward. 2, wrinkle that spine a little bit longer. 1 more breath, soften into the hamstrings, lengthen through the spine, and releasing back to center. And bending the legs as we find people's favourite posture. Shoulders back and down, tummy lifting forward, strong straight spine, feel the power in the bend. That might be your edge today, or if you're comfortable there, release the hands and eventually gliding the legs straighter to find your edge. 3, for 2, lift the pelvic floor, shoulders back and down for 1, then crossing and lifting. Second set, same again. Use the hands if you need to. Find your edge, straightening the legs just the right amount for you today. 3, for 2, for 1, and releasing. Try and keep the gaze point forward if you can, because otherwise your low back's going one way and your neck's going the other. Grabbing heels or ankles for the final one if you wish, or exactly the same again, whatever works for you. Tummy extending up towards the thighs, shoulders towards the floor, crown to the ceiling. For 3, for 2, for 1, and releasing. You feel that strongly in the front hip, then round forward a little bit for some nice release in there before we come on to our fronts. So, strong back work here as we find our way onto our fronts, starting first of all with the cobra. Fingertips underneath those shoulders, elbows sticking up like a cricket, tucked in nicely to the side of the body. The hands come off as well if you're working on back strength. The legs can be lifted and strong, but the toes don't come off the floor. The D wave of inhale, exhale, lift and lengthen. Your root is your pelvis, so push that pubic bone down into the ground. Roll the shoulders back and down and lift up through the elbows. 1 more breath, look a little higher, lift a little higher, and then slowly and gently controlling it on the way back down. Just a breath there, and a second set. Strong, hyperextended legs if you like, maybe the kneecaps lift off, zip up through the core, exhale, push the hips to the ground as we lift. Feel the space through the front of the body, look high with the eyes, but don't overcrank the neck. 3, for 2, for 1, and releasing gently back to the ground. Soften your head to one side, your hands release beside you. Your legs relax, softening your heels away from each other. And breathe. Then arms straight out at the sides to about 45 degrees from the body, palms down. Feet can be relaxed apart or are standard low post. Chin is square as we draw that wave of energy into the body. Exhale, hips to the ground as we lift legs and arms. Hyperextend those legs if you can. Try and touch the toes to the back wall. Reach out through the little fingers, pulling them back towards each other. 1 more breath, and release into the floor. You can do another one like that, or if you prefer, take your hands forward into Superman or Superwoman posture. If you want more intensity in the legs, bring them closer together. Inhale deeply, exhale, lift. Hyperextend those legs, reach out through the fingertips. Great start. Look high with the eyes for 2, 1 more, and release it, spot on. Relax the head down to the ground, turn it to the opposite side to last time. So you're stretching gently into the other side of the neck, and release from around there. finally, we're binding feet to our ankles for Dharasana, the bow posture. Knees are nice and wide apart, especially in the early days. Just soften it on the low back. If you've got a nice pronounced rocking bow, you might like to start to draw them closer together. The D wave of inhalation. Exhale, kick the feet back into the hands, lift the knees. Looking into the mirror for a moment to check both sides are nice and even, then you look even higher. 3, and 2, and 1, and slowly releasing back to one. Have a good breath there. Then our final set, last set of these front back bends, front seated back bends, front floor back bends. No, we're going to do one more in a second. Deep breath, inhale. Sometimes you just don't need seconds out that. Extending out into those legs. Listen to that breath. In, deep out, soften the shoulders, space through the chest for 2. One more breath, fantastic stuff, beautifully even all around the room, releasing when you're ready. Give yourself a moment there to soften. And then in your own time, we're coming to kneel towards the front of the mat for the last of our back bends. We'll recline to hero. Starting with our kneeling position. The knees come wide to soften it on the back. The heels separate, eventually allowing the hips to soften towards the ground. Only just as much as is okay with those knees. Hands behind you, soften the head back, bending down towards those elbows. And only when that's comfortable, we bring the elbows forward and come down onto those shoulders. Binding the elbows above the head and focusing on, once you're comfortable there, starting to bring the knees back towards each other. Tucking gently under into the tailbone to lengthen through the spine. In, deep out. Just a couple of breaths there, softening back into it. So if that's it. Well done. You're going naturally to the next place. So if you turn those hands, fingers towards the toes, and you've got nice control into the arms as you gradually bend them down. Great stuff. Feel free to let your head drop back as well. That helps the whole back bend and front opening feeling. Beautiful stuff. Gently and slowly coming back up in your own time. We'll do one more sit up and forward fold to counter all those back bends. So feel free to stay seated if you prefer, or lying back down if you wish. Deep wave of inhalation, hold that breath, then firing the hands forward and up. Buttocks a little rock as we extend forward. Sometimes it can feel more intense after all those back bends, so give yourself a couple of extra breaths. Lengthening on the inhalations. Rolling forward gently on the exhalations. Power in the belly, shoulders soft. Work with the breath. 3. Lengthening a little further. 2. Shoulders away from the ears. 1. And releasing. You're coming to kneel towards the back of the mat. Or Purvanasana, half tortoise position. Starting our cool down and consolidation, essential part of our practice, balancing all that yang effort, a little bit of introspection and stimulation of the parasympathetic nervous system. Inhale, sweeping high, lengthening over those thighs, extending and dropping your head to the floor. Drop the elbows to the ground. You can make a gap between the knees if you need to, if it's more comfortable. And most importantly, breathe. This beautiful inward-looking posture and focus more than ever on the movement of the breath. Allowing the hips to soften towards the ground, towards the heels, as we let go of tension wherever we find it. In, deep out. Just a couple breaths there. If you can let go of any more tension, allow a little more ease into the body. Feel the movement of the breath, expanding into the back of the body, softening on the exhales. When you're ready, gently and slowly, breathing your way back up, reaching for the sky, lengthening and releasing. Beautiful. Letting it come into the spine twist. So we're taking one foot up next to the opposite hip. If that's comfortable, then you can still keep both sit bones on the ground. Otherwise, if it's not, leave that bottom leg straight out in front of you. Beautiful. That foot that's come up and over the knee, make sure the whole sole of the foot is flat to the ground as you lengthen and rotate towards that thigh. Lovely. So the tummy's lifting up and forward, shoulders rotating, looking over the shoulder, eventually towards the back wall. So, sorry, I didn't know your leg in the back corner, twisting the other way. That's it, legs are perfect. You got it. Beautiful. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, rotating. Lift the pelvic floor, grow a little bit taller. Look a little further as you exhale, drawing the tummy button into the spine. And release. Over to the other side. Swapping the legs over. You might find one side is fine, the other side you need to leave that leg straight. See how you go. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, rotate. Going taller, down through the tailbone, up through the crown, and rotating as you exhale. Perfect stuff. 3 breaths, tummy strong, pulling the tummy button in. As we do that, we're bringing the blood out of those internal organs. One more. And releasing as we release all the beautifully oxygenated blood rushes back in. Fantastic. And I'm lying down just for a few minutes of Savasana. Corpse pose. If you like, we can come into a brief stiff Savasana. One last deep held breath. Every muscle in the body tight and taut. Lift the buttocks, squeezing them, lift the thighs, point the toes, fists to the floor, shoulders to the hips, faces scrunched, tummy hard, but then most importantly, let it all go. Let your heels be wider apart than your hips, maybe wider apart than your mat if you like. The arms be away from your sides, so your palms can face naturally upwards, fingers curling softly. No effort. And now there's no thought of the breath. There's no sound of the breath. There's no control of the breath. Just hand that job of breathing back to the autopilot. And consciously release the body down into the ground. Check your eyes are gently and softly closed. Give your jaw a little wiggle if you like. Allow your teeth to soften away from each other. The throat softens, especially if you've been Ujjayi breathing. All the muscles of your face beginning to relinquish their habitual tensions. So you notice the eyebrows and forehead softening. The temples relaxing. As you release the weight of the head a little more completely down into the ground, and the lightness and release in the neck and the top of the shoulders. Notice, if you like, the weight of the body into the earth, supported. Feel yourself down into that support. Notice, if you like, the areas where there's less weight into the ground. There's a sense of space and lightness in the lumbar spine, in the backs of the knees, the backs of the ankles. Staying alert, watchful, attentive and mindful. If you notice your mind wandering off into thoughts, plans, or even slumping towards sleep, if you can just catch it, don't fight it, don't try and build up barriers to those thoughts. That's just another type of tension. Just notice and gently bring your awareness back to the effortless rise and sink of the breath in the belly. Present and aware in the moment. Just letting go. If you have the time and the inclination today, feel free to stay longer in Savasana. Otherwise, when you're ready, starting by giving your fingers and toes a little wiggle. Becoming aware of your extremities and the edge of your shape in the air on your skin, and the space immediately around you. Allow yourself to expand and occupy that space around you. And gently and slowly in your own time, bringing your feet back together. If you like, inhaling your arms above the head and exhaling out into an awakening stretch through. Before you bring your knees towards your chest, hug them in for a moment. And allow yourself to rock gently over onto your right side, soft and heavy going. And there you are, you've done your practice. You've invested that time and effort in your health. Congratulations. Thank you very much for joining me. Namaste.